It didn't start with a warning, it started with gunfire. At 3:42 a.m. in the dark waters of the Caribbean Sea, a Venezuelan Navy patrol vessel opened fire on a US Navy destroyer without any radio contact. The first flash came from a 76mm deck gun, sending shells across calm water toward a ship that had not changed course or speed. The distance between the two vessels was shrinking fast, less than 9 nautical miles, close enough for sound to carry and leave no room for misunderstanding. On the Venezuelan bridge, the order was clear. Keep the bow pointed forward. Do not break off. Push in. The captain believed surprise would force the Americans to slow down or turn away. On board the US destroyer, alarms cut through the quiet. Radar screens tightened. Crew members moved to their stations without shouting or hesitation. This was not an accident. This was not confusion at sea. A smaller ship was choosing to challenge a modern warship directly. What the Venezuelan crew did not know was this: they were not catching anyone off guard. They had been tracked for hours, their movement watched in silence. And with the first shots fired, they crossed a line that could not be uncrossed. From this moment on, every decision would carry weight, and every second would matter. This confrontation did not happen by chance. The Southern Caribbean is one of the most watched stretches of water in the region. Shipping lanes, patrol routes, and military traffic cross here every day. Every move is seen. Every signal is logged. That is why this location matters. For Venezuela, sending a patrol vessel forward was not about sinking a US warship. It was about testing limits. How close can we get before the Americans respond? How far can pressure be pushed without consequences? This kind of move is often used to send a message, not just across the water, but back to command rooms and political leaders watching from shore. For the US Navy, the situation was very different. This was not a political signal, it was an operational threat. A destroyer does not represent a flag alone. It carries more than 300 sailors, each one trained to act fast, but also trained to avoid mistakes. In moments like this, hesitation can cost lives, but overreaction can trigger something much larger. That is what makes this encounter dangerous. One side believes it is applying pressure. The other side is focused on control and protection. When those two mindsets collide, small actions can grow into major consequences. As you listen to this, think about where the responsibility lies. Was this a calculated challenge or a reckless gamble at sea? If you believe Venezuela crossed the line, press 1 inch the comments. If you think the US response was the real turning point, press 9 and share your view. Because once lines are tested in waters like these, they rarely stay quiet for long. What makes moments like this even more serious is how fast they can spread. A single decision at sea can trigger reactions far beyond the horizon, pulling in allies, commanders, and political leaders who were never meant to be part of the moment. That is how local pressure turns into regional risk. The first real response did not come from the gun deck, it came from the screens. Inside the Combat Information Center of the US destroyer, a quiet change happened. A contact that had been tracked calmly for hours shifted status. Green turned to red. Speed increased. Course stayed locked. Fire control signals were detected coming directly from the Venezuelan vessel. That single change removed all doubt. This was no longer a warning. It was an active threat. Far above the dark water, beyond what either crew could see, a US maritime patrol aircraft had already been in position for hours. It had not arrived after the shooting started. It had been there long before. Its role was simple but decisive. Watch everything. Record everything. Send everything forward in real time. Every turn of the Venezuelan ship, every engine adjustment, every pause on its approach had already been logged and shared. So when the first shell was fired, the American crew did not react with surprise. They reacted with confirmation. On the bridge, orders came in low, steady voices. No shouting, no panic. The destroyer adjusted its heading slightly, only a few degrees, just enough to change firing angles without signaling retreat. Speed held steady. Defensive systems shifted modes. Sensors narrowed their focus. Each move followed a checklist drilled into the crew through years of training. Another shell hit the water closer than the last. The splash was louder now. You could feel the tension tighten across the ship, not as fear, but as concentration. An operator leaned closer to his display, eyes locked on a moving line. A technician ran a quick cross-check, then nodded once. These were small motions, almost invisible to an outsider. But in moments like this, they mattered more than words. On the Venezuelan vessel, the mood was different. They believed they were setting the pace. They believed the US ship was now reacting to them. The continued firing felt like momentum, but momentum can be misleading at sea. On the American side, time moved differently. Every second was measured. Every option was weighed. The system was already calculating trajectories, engagement windows, and risk levels faster than any human could follow. What mattered now was not emotion, but timing. As the distance continued to close, the space for signals and warnings disappeared. The first phase of the encounter was ending. Control was about to shift from observation to action. And with both crews fully committed, the next move would define how this confrontation would be remembered. The escalation did not explode all at once. It tightened, second by second. Out on the water, the Venezuelan patrol vessel continued firing, but the rhythm was changing. Shots were still coming, yet the spacing grew uneven. Corrections were being made, angles adjusted. The crew was no longer confident. They were working harder for the same result, fighting their own equipment as much as the target ahead. On the US destroyer, the situation shifted from monitoring to control. Defensive systems were fully active now. Sensors filtered noise from real threats. The ship altered course again, just a few degrees, enough to disrupt targeting solutions without giving up position. In close naval encounters, even a small turn can decide who holds the advantage. Inside the ship, the air felt heavier. No one spoke unless necessary. You could hear the hum of equipment and the low thump of boots moving fast but steady. Training had taken over completely. Each sailor knew where to be and what to watch. Fatigue did not matter yet, precision did. Another shell passed wide. Then another. The Venezuelan crew was still pushing forward, but the gap between intention and result was growing. Ammunition was being spent. Time was being burned. And still, nothing decisive was landing. This was the most dangerous phase. Not the opening shots, but the moment when one side begins to sense control slipping and tries to force it back through speed and pressure. That is when judgment narrows. That is when mistakes multiply. The Venezuelan vessel was now committed, too close to disengage cleanly, too exposed to reset the situation. If you are watching this unfold and choosing a side, now is the moment. If you believe Venezuela pushed this encounter too far, press 1 inch the comments. If you think the US Navy was already shaping the outcome long before this point, press 9 and let others know how you see it. Because at sea, escalation rarely announces itself. It creeps in quietly, and once it takes hold, it is almost impossible to reverse. Just as the encounter seemed locked into a familiar pattern, the situation changed. New contacts appeared low on the screens, small, fast, moving just above the surface of the water. At first, they looked like clutter, the kind operators are trained to ignore. Then their paths aligned, multiple objects, same direction, same speed, closing. These were not ships, they were drones. They lifted from coastal positions and pushed out over the water, flying low enough to blend with the waves. Cheap platforms, simple guidance, but dangerous in numbers. At the same moment, navigation signals began to degrade. Positions drifted, data lagged. Something was interfering with the electronic environment. The plan became clear. Overwhelm the defenses. Force the US destroyer to split attention between the ship firing in front of them and the swarm approaching from the side. Pressure from 2 directions, hoping something would slip through. On board the destroyer, there was no reaction yet. No sudden movement, no rush to fire. Operators tracked the drones, then looked past them. The crew understood something important before the other side did. These drones were a distraction, not the real center of gravity. This was the twist. While the Venezuelan side believed they were adding a new layer of threat, they were revealing how far they were willing to escalate, and escalation cuts both ways. If you are watching this and deciding where the line was truly crossed, now is the moment. If you think launching drones turned this into a dangerous gamble, press 1 in the comments. If you believe the US response from here is what really defines the encounter, press 9 and let your voice be heard. Because once new weapons enter the fight, the rules change, and the next move would no longer be about pressure, it would be about ending the confrontation. The decision came quietly. Inside the US destroyer, there was no countdown and no raised voice. Just a short order passed from the bridge into the combat center. By this point, the crew had already moved past debate. This was no longer about warning shots or signaling intent. It was about stopping a threat before it could reach effective weapons range. 2 missiles launched in quick succession, cutting upward into the dark sky and disappearing almost instantly. They did not turn toward the drone swarm, closing low over the water. They did not chase the noise or the distraction. Instead, they flew past it, locked onto the source of control the Venezuelan crew could no longer defend. Seconds later, a sharp flash lit the horizon. The first strike hit high on the patrol vessel. Sensors failed at once. Communication dropped out. Radar screens went dark. In a single moment, the ship lost its ability to see and coordinate. What had been an organized attack instantly became confusion. Before the crew could recover, the second impact followed. This one was lower and deeper. Power flickered, then disappeared. Engines lost thrust. The vessel slowed, drifted, and began to list slightly as internal systems shut down. What moments earlier had been an aggressive approach turned into a fight to keep the ship under control. On the US destroyer, no one celebrated. 3 seconds passed in complete silence as systems confirmed the results. No alarms, no cheers, just verification. Then every eye shifted back to the remaining threat. The drones were still inbound. Defensive guns activated automatically. Short, controlled bursts cut through the night. One drone vanished in a flash, then another. Pieces hit the water and disappeared. Some drones lost guidance and fell on their own. Others were destroyed just seconds before reaching the ship's outer defensive zone. The engagement lasted less than a minute, but in that minute, everything changed. The Venezuelan patrol vessel was no longer a combat factor. It was disabled and adrift. The drone swarm was broken apart, and the US destroyer remained steady, fully operational, its crew calm and in control as the sea slowly returned to silence. This was the climax of the confrontation, not chaos, not panic, but a precise ending to a situation that had been unfolding since the first round was fired. When the firing stopped, the sea went quiet again. The US destroyer slowed slightly and held position as crews ran final system checks. Reports came back one by one. No critical damage, no serious injuries. The ship remained fully mission capable, steady in the water as if nothing had happened. Out in the darkness, the Venezuelan patrol vessel drifted without power. Its weapons were silent, its sensors were gone. What began as an aggressive move ended with the crew focused only on damage control and staying afloat. The confrontation was over, not because one side lost nerve, but because one side lost options. The message from this encounter traveled far beyond the ships involved. It showed how modern naval confrontations are decided long before the first shot is fired. Information matters, timing matters, discipline matters. Bold moves and cheap tools can create pressure, but they collapse fast when faced with a force that stays connected and controlled. For the sailors on board the US destroyer, this was not a headline or a political moment. It was a reminder of why training never stops, why every drill matters, why calm decisions in dangerous moments keep people alive. For planners watching from shore, the lesson was harder to ignore. Testing limits at sea is never clean. A move meant to signal strength can just as easily expose weakness. And once escalation begins, control becomes difficult to regain. As you think about how this ended, consider what it really proved. If you believe this encounter shows why modern naval power still depends on discipline and restraint, press 1 in the comments. If you think it proves that confrontations like this are only becoming more dangerous, press 9 and share your view. And for everyone watching from a distance, the warning is clear. Encounters like this are happening more often, with less room for error each time. The next decision made at sea may not allow any correction at all.